I'm Jamal Jones.
And I'm David McClain. And this is Getting Back Up Podcast.
We are two men, black men, who share one of the most earth-shattering experiences, losing a spouse to cancer.
We're having real, open, and honest conversations about navigating loss, moving forward, becoming single dads overnight, and rediscovering companionship. We'll talk about our perspective as we try to find happiness and a way forward and how we balance kind of this new chapter that we're in.
You're going to hear interviews with family, friends, and even industry professionals, all with the goal of better understanding the lives of those supporting someone fighting cancer, as well as the lives of those who are left after you fight cancer or any terminal illness. We want to help to bring perspective to those lives so that those can understand what someone is dealing with after loss, and so that you can understand that you're not alone.
Our hope truly is that through our lens, we provide a voice for those who suffer in silence. We want to hear from you in building this community of talking about loss in the way that we do.
You don't have to be a professional to understand loss. You just have to accept and acknowledge what you're going through. So join us on this learning experience together on Getting Back Up Podcast. We want to talk openly and discuss this topic almost as if we're having a conversation about our favorite sports teams. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we want this to be something where it's honest, it's natural. You know, is it Kendrick Lamar or is it Drake? I mean, you know, like, we want to really kind of get into that topic of loss and grieving and being a single father, but talk about it like it's normal. Like, this is a normal topic to discuss, as if it was something on TV, as if it was something we saw in the movies or something like that. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah.
Why do you think, what makes us qualified to do this? Let's touch on that real quick.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're two men at different life stages, right? About the same age, but but as far as, you know, losing a loved one, I'm probably, I guess I'm approaching 8 years, almost now. And you're, about 3 now, right? And we've had to learn how to navigate life after these losses with our children, but also just kind of dealing with the different dynamics of adjustment, right, of the grieving process. We don't necessarily have to have the expertise and training. I think, to my perspective, is the experience is training enough, right? And I mean, I think we do a good job of leaning on and relying on the professionals, the loved ones, and all of those who can help us get through this. But I think being able to go through this and kind of get through each day, in particular, being able to get through each day and being able to look at your kids and be like, hey, like they're in a good place. I think that makes us qualified. But I think the important part of going through this is knowing when you look through those resources, when you look for help, when you're open to saying, hey, like, I need a moment, I need somebody to talk to, whether it's a friend, a professional. And I think the other part about it is just like the thing that I've learned is I have to be open and curious to learning about how I need to adjust, learning how I need to kind of deal with the day to day. Right. That was something that I had to go through. And to be honest, I still go through it. Right. But you have to be open to kind of enduring the grief and the pain in order to come out the other side. And I think, like a lot of men, we're typical, we don't want to own that pain, own that difficulty. Somebody we lose somebody. We just, we pour out a little liquor. Pour out a little liquor for my homie. We 2 taps, toss it up to God. He'll take care of it. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's not that easy, and I think you got to be okay saying that.
Yeah, it's a journey, and that's something we want to take folk on. We'll talk about a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
that loss of that life partner, unexpected, unplanned, becoming a single father overnight, dealing with the anger of survivor's remorse
Right.
to a great extent.
Yeah.
How family dynamics really change,
Yep.
not only for your partner and her family, but
Yeah.
your own and extended,
Right.
and different thoughts and protocol and what's right, what's not in
Yep.
their thinking, which they're not in your shoes. They don't know exactly what's going on.
Exactly.
And Jamal, we'll talk about dating.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
I mean, we get those are stories I want to hear. But I know our listeners going to want to hear those, not just because some of them it's the difficulty of moving, but
Right.
they're good stories, and a lot of them are funny.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of them are like truly hilarious stories. So
Yeah.
that's going to be important. But D, I think the most important part is not only are we here to talk about our experiences and help our listeners,
Right.
give them, kind of the trust in themselves that they'll get through this, but we're here to have fun. At the end of the day, I think we're talking about a serious issue, but you have to have fun in the process of moving forward.
Yeah, in grief, there is laughter and humor. You've got to find that. This is tough stuff. We know that. However, we know that you, your family, your friends, the children in your household, or maybe they're a little older and outside, those are really depend on you. They admire and love you, and they need you back in the game. By no means is this easy, as we've said, but it's necessary to learn and adapt to this new playbook and navigate new terrain. Because once you learn what's going on and deal with this period in time, the terrain changes again.
Yep.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst, as you and I have always been taught and now tested when our wives have passed.
Right.
I'm relatively fresh from the tragic loss. It's been a couple of years for me and more for you. My feelings are perhaps closer to the surface compared to Jamal. And I think that's why it's important for us to represent early in loss. The stages are still there. They may be a little more lengthened, but whether it's a couple of years or many years, we're still going to encounter that.
Yeah, and Dave and I have this term, or this phrase, we call it the seasons, going through the seasons.
Yeah.
And I've definitely have had more experience in the seasons than Dave. Not necessarily better or worse. They just, I'm further from the loss.
Yeah.
Right. And although the memories, the triggers, the coping methods are there, they still present themselves despite moving forward. Like regardless of how far I am away, from that loss, from that moment, I still have those adjustments, right? My kids still have those adjustments. And as a result, my now wife is experiencing those adjustments, right? Like that. And those are things that you go through. But, at this stage, this is kind of where Dave and I connected, and we started bonding and realized, regardless where we were in this journey, how many seasons we had been through, or how new we were, like this is where Dave and I are kind of locked in. Right. And our friendship and also the idea of the need to do this.
Yeah. Tell them how we met. Tell the folks.
Yeah. So, I recently moved to New Jersey, after being away from the East Coast for a long time. And, with my wife and my children and my daughter, Zaya, middle school, they were both, my daughter and Dave's daughter were in a few classes together. And, we ready to throw Zaya a birthday party. We ask her who she wants to invite. So she comes back with thankfully, right, when you move and you transition and you're not sure, how many children are going to be there? And is she going to find some friends? But she did, thankfully. Dave's daughter was one of those. And, she had a little birthday party at a bowling alley. And we invite some of the young women there and the parents. I send the text out. And Zaya comes to me one day excitedly, like, Dad, I think, you should meet my friend Miela's dad. And I'm like, okay, like, all right, no problem. She was like, why? She's like, I think you guys would get along. You have a lot in common. And I'm like, what? Like, we black? Like, Miela's a black name, so I know this is a young black, this is a little, black girl. So I'm like, all right, that's fine, no problem. I brush it off. We go about the day. A couple of weeks later, the party's here, and we're running around, getting things gathered, and parents start showing up, and I'm in it. I'm just like taking care of anything, talking to the hostess, making sure food's ordered, getting the girls corralled so they can get to their lane and everything. And parents start flowing in, and I see Dave, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And Zaya comes over. She's like, Dad, that's Miela's dad. That's Mr. David. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, he looks cool. Yeah. So, fast forward, and
because you were still running around.
I'm still running
the bowling
around.
Hours,
Yeah.
I remember.
And my wife she's running around chasing my youngest, right? And my youngest at the time was 2, so she's running around chasing her around, and helping to kind of get the kids corralled and kind of greeting the parents while I'm running around with my head all crazy.
And understanding, I knew this was the new wife.
Yeah,
because I had a little background. So I said, "Oh, okay, all right."
Yes,
so that's important.
Yeah, and so
because that's your representative first,
right?
That's the first person I met, and then
that is
you
true.
were handling everything.
Yeah, because because I'm in the So we go back, and finally things settle. We're in the area. Parents came over, and we're kind of giving them option to stay and leave. And David, I could see the cover. David's like, "Nah, I ain't leaving. I don't know this dude. I don't know who this cat is." Right? So I can see it.
Really, Jamal? That was the vibe.
I kind of picked it up. Like I'm dropping my daughter off. I'm not going no way. Who's this? Who these people? So, So we sit down. Jordan comes and said, "Sit down, babe. Sit down. Go talk to Dave." And it's funny. I think Zaya and Jordan, my wife, I think they were both kind of like, Jamal needs a play date, right? Like they were both like, yeah, go talk to David.
Yeah.
Like, let's go talk to Mr. David. That's him. So fine. I get a little drink, and finally we sit down and introductions, and we talking, and I think, I don't remember how, clearly my wife is there.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty quick that we were like connected on the,
because I think going into it, I knew, as I said, this was the new wife, which sounds terrible, but we understand, okay, I knew your background, which was similar to mine, of losing our wives to cancer.
Yep.
And so
the kids had mentioned that. They had primed us for that.
Right.
For that.
So it was, we knew we wanted to talk to each other.
Right.
Especially because our daughters were doing the matchmaking and everything. Mm-hmm. So we knew we connected on that.
Right.
And then and I desperately needed to talk to somebody who was going through what I was going through, who looks like me, who lives down the way from me type.
Yeah.
Our lives are intertwined because of our children going to the same school.
Right.
We're just trying to work through it.
Yeah.
Fresher for me.
Yeah.
Since it only been a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe less than that. So it wasn't much.
Right.
You clearly, by the representation, everything going on, you moved on in, and I want to know, how do I do that? I know I must and should, and my background with my parents and all of my family experience has always said this: hope for the best, plan for the worst, and you keep moving. But then to see a representation of somebody who's doing that, who looks like me, who was a father. So anyway, so we then sat down, is what I recall.
Yeah, so we sit down, and it was almost automatic. And it was funny because as we started talking and we connected, and we were like, oh, okay, this was the dynamic. Yeah. And we almost jumped right into that.
Right.
And I think part of it was like me realizing like you needed that.
Yeah.
Right. Like you needed, okay, there's somebody who's done this, who's been in this with me, who's gone through this. And it was interesting how we just connected, and I didn't realize how much I needed that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just because my wife and Jordan and Zai were right. I needed a play date.
Yeah.
Right. I needed some friends in the area, but I also was, I went from losing my wife to deciding to move forward to COVID to getting married to I went through these transitions really quickly, almost in isolation. So I didn't, and the one thing I remember missing after I lost Janice was there's nobody who understands this. There's nobody like me who looks like me, who has had experiences like me, particularly a black man who has gone through this. And color doesn't matter so much, but it's an identifier.
It's context.
It's a way. It's context for us.
Yeah.
So I think that was important. But I think as we went through that, I think that was something, and we connected. I mean, it was just hilarious. And then it's reading the room and other people in the area, just kind of trying to encroach in our zone, and we're like, nah, dude, you can't come in.
Right. Folk trying to get in. Yeah. But then also we have to realize, oh shoot, we are in the bowling alley though.
Yes.
Maybe this isn't the venue to go as deep as we truly want to.
Right.
But I'm gonna see this dude again. That's I think our understanding.
Yep. So I mean that was a interesting way to connect, and I think that was for us the way that we formed our friendship, but also got to the point where having these conversations have gotten us here. So it's funny, thinking back to that whole situation, and but I think it's such a unique example of moments where people don't know what to say, or you're in zone, or you finally met somebody that you can kind of connect with on a particular topic. Again, we're fans of this sport, right? Or we love this team, or this artist is amazing, and for us. Not that we love this experience, but we bonded on this experience, right? And kind of how do people encroach that zone or kind of come into that experience, and kind of understand where we are. And I think that's the importance of connecting with people who have experienced this type of loss, right? I think where they are, whether it's in that moment, in that day. I saw your protection of your daughters, and I remembered feeling that exact way after I lost Janice, right? And you get a truly amazing experience of being able to know in advance what this person is going to be going through, right? What have they probably experienced, but even more what's to come for them. And the brotherhood, I think, is well, how do I help them through this? So
yeah, definitely and I didn't know what was to come. And I think that was the incredible resource I had in you. And so also in that moment, I was willing to speak about what I had encountered up to that moment, and attempting to find people, because you can have therapy, which is important.
Right.
It's important. It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Right.
To speak to somebody who doesn't know all of your circumstances,
right.
and has no judgment, is hearing it, and he or she, and can kind of put all of that together for you. So it's sharing what I knew was more of a mutual experience.
Yeah.
And what I have yet to encounter.
And I think that's where, so the when you think about it, right, and to your point, counseling is amazing, therapy is amazing, group sessions are amazing, but in so many ways they're guided and they're necessary, but they're not always organic.
Yeah.
And I think the part where, I think I think about it it's like a valve, right? And you've got all this steam building up, all this pressure building up. And at some point in time, you got to open that valve, and it's got to be organic. And you might be more effective releasing that valve when you got somebody who you can connect with, when you have a bond with, right? And they're okay with you doing that.
Yeah.
Right. They're okay with you, like, turning that release and like letting all the pressure out because they've been there.
Yeah.
Right. They've been there.
Yeah.
And I think that part is key. So I think what was interesting was Dave and I were willing to open those valves to kind of really have those difficult and uncomfortable conversations
And leave it open.
and leave it open, like texting each other like, yo, this happened today, this moment, this experience. And oh man, the kid's mother should be here. Zaya's mom would miss this, or Miela's mom should be here, or like whatever the experience, like being able to have that and it's okay. And somebody's not looking at you like, man, this dude crazy.
Right.
Right.
And just those simple milestones.
Right.
Just the ones you take for granted.
Right.
Because your partner had always been there for that. Mm-hmm. The birthday parties where you and I met.
Yeah, exactly.
That, for me, it's, man, if Nalani were here,
right,
my late wife, if she were here, she could experience this and meet these terrific people that we have met.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting too, Jamal, on that is, would we have met? What would have been the high probability you and I would meet had this not happened?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting conversation.
Right. Would we have met and just been, hey, nice to meet you, and that's it?
Who knows?
Or did this thing bring us and create our friendship, right? And foster our friendship.
Yeah.
So
we're going to talk about all of this.
Yeah. And we gonna have it's gonna be lengthy conversations, and we're gonna go deep on some of this, but I think it helps you understand, and it's gonna give you all context to what the experience is and help you be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like the not knowing what's gonna be next, right? Thank you for joining us on Getting Back Up, Finding Life After Death. If something in today's episode spoke to you, pass it on, because somebody out there needs to hear this.
For sure. We're on all the social mausoleums, so follow us on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Mostly it will be in the form of Get Back Up Podcast.
And be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast.
And remember, getting knocked down is part of life.
But getting back up is how we live.
We'll see y'all next time.